The contamination of women. There's a lot of it going on. We're seeing the effects firsthand. This generation is one of the most degenerate generations that I've ever seen. I mean, of course, I'm young, but you can go in the history books. There's been plenty of degenerate things going on throughout the world. Things we don't know about, things we do know about, things we don't care about. But the degeneration and the contamination of women is very prevalent. It's among the young women, which is the future generations. And I think it's a big deal, a much bigger deal than many people make it out to be, or even acknowledge. Because the everyday typical woman that I interact with it's not even in her reality, the idea that there could be some type of contamination against her actively happening all the time, all the way around her. So there's many different topics I could speak about, but today I really want to talk about the contamination of women through friendships, through social circles. And this doesn't only apply to women, because it is really important for anybody to analyze and be selective with the people that they allow around them and in their space. But I will say, being a woman myself, I have firsthand experience with the ease it is to fall into patterns and to change my behavior based on who I hang around. I realized this, thankfully, thank God, at a young age, but it wasn't always like that. I remember being in high school, being easily influenced by the people I hung out with. I can look back and say, wow, that wasn't even me. What was I doing? Why was I acting this way? Why was I doing these things? Why was I speaking this way? Why was I listening to this music? And it's not to blame other women, as far as like, I'm not taking it off of myself and putting it onto them, but I really want to talk about how easily influenced we are. We need to acknowledge one thing going into this video. Women are highly socially adaptable. Whether they're doing that consciously or subconsciously, that is another topic. Probably get into that in this video, but we are highly socially adaptable. And I do believe that this goes back into history for our survival. I'm not going to speak on the morals of it, but if there was a kingdom and that kingdom fell, the women would typically adapt and find husbands in the other kingdom that overcame their previous kingdom, and that's how they survived. It was a survival mechanism. Now, yes, this can also speak to the manipulative dark traits of women who seemingly pass off one man for the next when she's not getting her needs met, when her selfishness is more important to her than the well-being of the people around her, and she just changes. These are flaws, but I do think that we have seen patterns of this in history. We have seen it's hard for me to use this word, but in my opinion it is true. We've seen the disloyal patterns of women time and time again, okay? So, I think this can be a positive and a negative thing, but I do think that this is a much more negative thing than positive in most circumstances, especially in the modern world. So, women, we unconsciously adapt and evolve and take on speech patterns, beliefs, fears, habits, insecurities, ambitions. We literally subconsciously take on almost everything. We are the most easily programmable species on the earth. We can be manipulated the most easy, even if we don't realize that or not. We're very easily manipulatable. And not only does society do these things and target us, but the women we hang around do as well. I am aware of these things, but I still fall into them. If I'm surrounding myself with women who can't stop talking about other people, what am I going to end up doing? I'm going to end up talking about other people. What kind of example is this for my kids? What kind of example is this for my future kids? What kind of example is this to anybody around me? How am I portraying myself? Not in a very good way. And a lot of times you're not even realizing you're doing it. So you need to analyze. You need to see, who are your friends that are the most likely to gossip? Why are you friends with them? What is the benefit for you? How is this helping you evolve as an individual? The same thing goes for men. Is your woman friends with hoes? Well, you should kind of be worried, because a woman who is friends with other women who cheat on their partners, who are hoes, well, they'll very quickly adapt to believing that these things aren't as bad as they might have once believed they were. They will very quickly begin accepting these things and laughing about them. That's why who you keep around you is extremely important. Men and women. It's not just for women, this part. If you hang out with people who joke about things that you take seriously or that you once took seriously, you're going to end up joking about that. You're going to lose your discipline. You're going to lose everything that has made you who you are. It's very easy for this to happen, which is why you need to really, really hone down and focus on who are you hanging out with? Who are you having conversations with? Who are you giving your time to? Don't become a person who starts laughing about things that were once important to you because everybody else is. I have almost become victim to that. I've almost fallen short and done these things. There's been times in my life where I really believed, that cursing was disgusting and I didn't want to curse anymore. And I really put it in my head, I want to stop cursing. I don't want to have that in my language. I want to present myself in a more classy, elegant, well put together manner. I do not want to use curse words to express myself. And then I would go hang out with people, men and women, doesn't matter, just people in general. And they would curse and it becomes so normal. And that thing that is so important to me seemingly becomes silly. Like, everyone's doing it. Why do I care so much about doing it? Maybe I'm weird. Maybe I'm the one that has a problem. These people are just normal. No. If you have a belief, you need to stick to it. And if there's people around you that cannot also follow in that belief, you need to analyze whether or not it's worth it to keep them in your life, in your circle or not. If you are a person who values fitness and you value health, will you be friends with a bunch of chronically overweight people that cannot control what goes into their mouth? Will you? And then you can argue with me and say that this is wrong and you shouldn't have this mindset, but at the same time, the people that are close to you wear off on you. And eventually, missing the gym once in a while won't become such a big deal if everybody around you is overweight and they don't take care of themselves and they never go to the gym. All of a sudden, you will seem like the exception and you'll start to slack off. I've seen this happen. It's happened to me. When I was around people who didn't prioritize their health, didn't prioritize their mindset, didn't prioritize their future, didn't prioritize anything, I wasn't prioritizing anything. And if I came into that friendship or relationship, whatever it was, with the mindset of these things are important to me, very slowly over time, those things became unimportant to me, which is why it is so important who you allow into your life. Because slowly, there's toxicity and their lack of care for themselves will wear off on you. That's why I say you should always be the worst in the 5 people you hang out with. For example, if you're a man and having a generous income and generational wealth is important to you, building that for your future family, that's something that's important to you. You should be the poorest person in your friend group because you're going to get the habits of the 4 other people who have it together. You're going to learn things. You're going to adapt your lifestyle. You're going to become better. But if you're the most wealthy man out of the 5 people in your friendship group, well, probably what's going to happen is either one thing, you're not going to be friends with them for very long, or you're going to start slacking off and going down to their level because they're going to start influencing you. They're going to start calling you crazy for missing out on the club to go to the gym. They're going to start calling you crazy for not drinking beer at the sports game because everybody else is. This is something I really realized while the World Cup is going on. Yes, I went and I, watched and I spent time there with people. I think there's nothing wrong with enjoying sometimes in moderation. And, it's always interesting to see things that bring people happiness and see things that so many people are passionate about. Now, I may have no interest in these huge theatrical events, for example, American football, for example, the World Cup. I can enjoy on a small scale personal teams, watching from my house. I'm not going to invest too much of my time into it, though, because I do believe it is a psyop and I do believe it is a way to harvest energy. Let me get back to the point. So I went there and to some World Cup events this year, and I was just watching everybody around me, and it's almost like nobody has a mind of their own. You're allowed to enjoy, you're allowed to relax a little bit, you're allowed to, have fun, but these people, they go in groups, and they think they're all different, but they're not different, they're the exact same, they react the same, they cheer the same, they have the same opinion about the game, they're all drinking the same alcoholic beverage, they're all getting drunk, they're all eating the same crap food, they're all wasting their money on bets, and nobody in those groups, in those circles, sees anything wrong with it because they're all on the same level. So they're basically clones of one another in different skins, and they see nothing wrong with it, and they never will. And they will continue to mindlessly go do these things. They will continuously mindlessly cheer for something. They will continuously stand out of their chair just because everybody else is doing it. It's like really a movie when you watch it, when you sit back and you watch and you analyze it. But it is very easy to get sucked into it because you feel that energy. Even me, somebody who I have these opinions about these things and these events, and I see them for what they are. In the moment, the energy is so strong, you kind of just want to give into it. You kind of just want to be part of it. And, there's nothing wrong. Your life isn't going to end if you adapt and you have fun for one day. But the point is that one day becomes, overnight, because now we're going to an after party. Or it becomes another day, like, let's go to the next game, let's do this again. And then it becomes this ongoing cycle of one more day, one more day, one more day. And eventually your routines are thrown off. Your values are thrown off. You're not even thinking about your goals anymore because you've given into this pleasure. You've given into this entertainment. And it's become your life. And I just use the World Cup as an example because it was something I firsthand experienced this week, in this last few weeks. But there's so many examples of that. Going out for a girls' dinner, okay? I've actually been hanging out with some people lately. I've been getting out, hanging out. I'm trying to, network and make new connections. But I'm very selective with who I allow in my space. I'm very selective with my time, and I want to remain that way. And I've been enjoying my time in my conversations with people in the past few weeks. And I've been enjoying, going out and doing some dinner or going out and doing a lunch. I've enjoyed experiencing those things in a very moderate setting because I know how fast things can slide down even without your intention. How fast can a girl's lunch turn into, oh, let's go out this weekend? There might not be anything wrong with that to the average everyday person, but to someone like me, who I value my family, I value my husband, I value my image, I value my routines, I value my personal growth, do I really want to sacrifice what I'm working to build for one day of fun? And again, maybe you think one day is not going to hurt anything, but I know how fragile the minds of women are. I know how fragile my mind is. I know how much I need to protect my mind to be sharp. I know how much it matters where you spend your time. I know how much it matters what your kids see you doing and what time they see you coming home, what time they see you spending with the family versus going out. So very quickly, one thing can turn into a whole bunch of things. So you have to be willing to protect your energy. You have to be willing to protect your time. You have to be willing to stand up for what you believe in, even when it's not popular. You cannot conform, women. You cannot conform to the groups that you hang out in. Just because they do it, just because it's normal, doesn't mean you should do it. It's not going to be easy. Trust me, it's not going to be easy. I can think back to when I was a little bit younger. I think I was about 19 or 20 years old, all right? And I will say that as far as my life went before I got married and had children, it was a great time in my life. I had started a business and it was very successful and it felt great. And I know that counters my anti-feminist mindset, but I will say it did feel absolutely good in that time when I was starting my business and I was, building something. It was great to be learning new skills and working independently rather than working for some fast food restaurant that I had been doing beforehand. And I was doing it with a partner. I was doing it with another young girl. Okay, it was great. I was learning a lot about people, meeting a lot of people, learning a lot about business, learning a lot about the world. And in that time, I found myself getting off from my job, finishing up, and instead of going home and working on the business or working on learning more knowledge to increase my business skills, I found myself going and hanging out with a bunch of degenerate people at a pool or, going out to restaurants at night or going out to watch, soccer games or whatever it may be, doing things that don't matter instead of going to the gym, instead of working on my business, instead of working on myself, instead of the important things. I was spending my time in unimportant areas. And I did this for quite a few months before I realized, at 19, 20 years old, I realized that this was going nowhere, that my time was way more valuable than the things I was doing, and that the people I was hanging out with and around, I didn't want to be like them. And I don't know what clicked in my head. I just really looked at these people and I was like, what makes me different from them if I'm doing the same things that they're doing every day? And I didn't want to be like them, and I refused to. So I just cold turkey stopped. I stopped showing up even though people would text me late at night, come on, we're playing pool, or come on, we're hanging out at the pool. Whatever it was, I started ignoring those texts, backing away, locking in, and it was very lonely, and it wasn't easy, women. So if you're in a friend group now that is degenerate, that is not the best, that is not the circle that you want to be in, if you look at your friends and they're not people that you want to be like, if they're not people that you can learn from, it's time to cut them out of your life. They're not going to change. They're not going to change, which brings me into a good point I want to make. Think about how hard it is to change yourself. Think about on New Year's when you say you're going to start going to the gym or you're going to start eating healthy or you're going to start something new. Think about how difficult that is to actually do, to actually stay consistent in, to be disciplined in, and to do. That is not easy. How many times have you told yourself you're going to change, you're going to do something, and you've fallen right back into the habits that you didn't want to fall back into? It is not easy to change. When our brains are happy with the way that something is, and when something is pleasurable, in fact degenerate, we enjoy those things. When we get quick dopamine hits, it's not easy to stop doing that. Whether that's pornography, whether that's smoking cigarettes, vaping, drinking, going out, sex, casual sex, whatever it is, if it feels good and it's easy to attain, it's not easy to quit that. It's not easy to change from those habits and do something harder, okay? Just think about that for a minute. When's the last time you tried to change and you failed? It was probably difficult, and it was probably much easier to not change. All right, so now that you have that in your head and you understand, if you can't even change yourself, what in the world makes you think you are capable of changing another human being? Why could you change another human being if you can't even change yourself? So put that out of your head. I'm not sure how big of a struggle this is for men, changing people. Maybe you want to help your bro out. Maybe you want to put him on something. Maybe you don't want to leave him behind because you are learning a new skill and you want to bring him with you. If he's still on the crap that he's on, there is a 0.01% chance you could change him. If he doesn't see you elevating and he wants to follow that automatically on his own, he's not going to do that. Now, women, I know because I've had friends, I myself have done this as well, have had this in my head. We are people, I won't say we are people because there are a lot of different women. Generally speaking, women want to fix broken men. Okay? I have seen this over and over and over again. If you have a phone and you have social media, or if you have a TV and you have movies or shows on your TV, that you've seen some type of thing portraying a woman seeing a bad boy trying to fix him because she wants to be the savior. Now, whole different problem, but the point I'm trying to make is women want to fix things. And a lot of women want to fix broken men. So they get into bad relationships. They stay there for a long time. They ruin their lives. They ruin their potential. They ruin their future trying to fix a broken man. And now with friendships, this is something I have personally struggled with. This is one of my biggest weaknesses. This has happened to me time and time again from the time I can remember having my first female friend. I always wanted to bring my friends with me. I always wanted to share knowledge with my friends, my female friends. And the thing that I've learned is, I've just said it here, but I've really, really learned that you can't change people. And it's not easy to accept that, especially as far as friends go. It's easier to accept as far as relationships go because, you can leave relationships in the past, lesson learned. But friendships is not so easy, at least for me. I have always been the girl that sought after knowledge. And even when I was young, 12, 13 years old, I was discovering things about the world that were lies, and I was discovering the truth about these things from a very young age. And I would always be so passionate about sharing that to my friends, sharing that to my close friends, to my family, to whoever I was close to at the time. I would be so excited to share that with them and say, look, can't you see? Everything that we've been taught is a lie. We need to fight against this. We need to speak out against this. We need to be different. Even when I wasn't perfect, I still was wired this way. And as I've grown and gotten older, and I discovered more things, and I've realized more things about the social hierarchies and the social structure of the world and social media and feminism and all these things, I've started to realize the truth of these things. And I always tried to wake up my female friends, and it never worked. They didn't care. They never cared. And you can't make friends care. You can't make people care about the same things you care about, which is why you should not stay in friend groups or stay in relationships in hopes that you can change them. Because like I already said over and over again, 9 times out of 10, you won't change them. You could barely change yourself. So stop trying to think you can change them. Leave them behind. It's not easy. It's not easy. And you should share the information with them at least once. But don't let people hold you back when you continue to grow. Don't feel bad about it either, because those people are always going to attract people like them. But when you are different, you don't need to stay there. You don't need to stay those places. You don't owe those people anything. If they were meant to be on your level, they would observe what you were doing and they would naturally understand and realize the change. They would understand what you're doing. They would understand why you're doing that. They would want to get sharper with you. Iron sharpens iron. Okay? So I want you to put that in your head. If you're a woman and you're in a relationship or a friendship with people that you know, they're not who you want to be like, they're not who you want to hang out with, they're not good for you, stop trying to change them. Stop. Leave it in the past. Leave it behind. You are blocking yourself from becoming a better person. You are blocking yourself from growing out of your toxic, negative, degenerate behaviors. So stop. I think another problem is that a lot of women are terrified of being alone. Terrified. I see so many stoic quotes and stoic, motivation and all these things on social media, but it's mostly aimed towards men. And I think that's because women are terrified of being alone. So they will sacrifice their standards just to have someone to hang out with. If you open up a social media app, you can see tons of women talking to their camera about how they reached out to Miami promoters to go on yachts and restaurants. And what in the world are you doing? Like, literally, you're so scared of being alone, not having fun. You can't stand the idea of not being on trend that you will basically swap your soul and your self-respect and everything to go on some random guy's yacht? What is wrong with you? Have standards for yourself. Just because every other girl on TikTok is doing it doesn't mean that you need to do it. In fact, if you see a lot of women on TikTok doing something, the chances are you should do it the opposite way and not do that at all. So if you ever want to see what not to do, look at what everybody is doing. You inherit the standards of your group, okay? Obesity, victimhood, gossip mentality, cheating, promiscuity, laziness, all these things. If that is the standard and the normal of your group, you're going to have those traits. They are going to go into your psyche. They are going to become a part of you. Whether or not you want to believe it or not, it's going to happen. The standards of your group eventually become the standards of your life. Aristotle understood it perfectly when he said, men become builders by building. Your character develops by repetitive action and by association. Character isn't something you're just born with. It's something that is constantly becoming and constantly growing into something. So every single person you allow into your life is shaping that character into something. So my message to you, men and women, protect your space, protect your standards, protect your attention. Because the people around you are slowly deciding who you're becoming. And usually by the time you actually realize that and do something about it, it's already too late.